now I'm going to start the clip. Okay. Thank you for joining me for this video today. I want to talk about something I saw recently, which was over the last few days, I've noticed a lot of content creators are quitting. This is nothing new. Like, people have always been quitting League, and, that's something that people always are going to say. But I guess when I have to define it, people will quit League because of whatever reasons they have, like, for their own narratives. But I think it's important sometimes to drill into those because one common sentiment I was noticing is that people will tell other people why they should quit League. It's not just like, I'm quitting for me, it's here's why you should quit. And there's something that strikes me as being just a little off about that. Like, I don't think it's a good approach towards how we as a community should look at that kind of stuff. We shouldn't recommend other people to quit for reasons that are bothering us. The gameplay footage you're seeing right now it's just filler. This is basically just a game I played in Aatrox. It was a good one, but it's just for background. So there's something while I'm talking over this. The content creators I saw quit most recently were Rav and Roku. Rav is a low gold, actually he might have been mid gold, but he wanted to hit platinum. ADC player. He uses text to speech. He was a fairly well-known YouTuber, but he was known for having a lot of trouble seeing what he's doing wrong compared to his allies, because he's in the more low ranks. The second person I saw quit today, for example, is Roku. He was a Masters level Darius one main who did commentary gameplay, which was semi-educational, but mostly was just for his commentary. So Roku was less of a person to blame others, but he had a lot of complaints he gave towards Riot themselves, specifically why he was quitting. I wanted to address several of his points because they're more constructive and able to be looked at than Rav's are. Rav kind of just had his last game be one that he thought he should be able to carry, and yet the game just was chaotic and his allies threw it, so he didn't want to play anymore. He thought, if I can't win these games, then why play the game at all? I think Rav is emotionally quitting, and I'm pretty positive he's going to come back because most players who emotionally quit don't stay away because it's not a decision they actually wanted to make. It's one that they had just convinced themselves that it's the right decision in the moment. Roku was less of a emotional decision and more logically structured, and he just did not find the game fun anymore. And Vanguard for him was the last straw. I'm going to go over Roku's list of points that he gave for what was making him want to quit. The first one is time investment. So League of Legends takes a considerable time investment to play. And this is true. Like, if you want to get to a higher rank, and so he was in Master, you must commit at least a certain amount of time just to get the games in. Now, I think that a big problem that especially like people like Rav and Roku were having is this game was also in a way their income. They were YouTubers that would make a lot of their regular financial income off of these videos. And whenever you're playing the game for a job, I find it's a lot harder to enjoy, especially because if you're trying to get certain content like footage, then whenever you have a game that goes badly, that's taking away from your ability to get that footage what you need for your next income. I think that leads to a lot of built up resentments in these kind of players too. But time investment is definitely a key thing to mention. I do think that's true. That said, that's only if you're trying to play for the explicit purpose of ranking up to a certain rank. I think a lot of players don't try to get to a super high rank, and instead they want to play the game to enjoy it or to improve at it. In which case, you don't have to put in such a heavy time investment. His second point was he feels that Riot Games doesn't care about the player experience anymore. Now, I think that there's some hyperbolic views towards how Riot handles communications to the community. Back when Freak was getting a lot of hate and he was making a lot of statements about his like interactions with different people from subreddit communities. I think it negatively impacted the perception people had of like how Riot perceives the community. Froxon does a good job, I think, of trying to be a bridge between like the community and the like Riot themselves, but there's a lot of like people who are not going to look at the new evidence of Riot's communication and instead are just going to remember that one negative period. And it's fair. That there was a period where that was what Riot was acting like because Freak was the face of the Riot dev team and he wasn't putting on a very good show. But okay, moving on to the next point. He goes on to game breaking champions. Now, he gives an argument of the champions that are being put in the game now have such powerful effects that it's not that they're over like unfair, it's that they just make it so much more unpredictable. Like whenever a new champion comes out, he said that you're going, what is this person gonna do? Like what is the new thing I'm gonna have to like hate to fight against? It's takes it away from curiosity and turned it into like anxiety almost. It's a like you're dreading it rather than looking forward to it. And I think with some effects, especially ones like, he gave uh Viego, he gave Akshan, or you have Smolder with his burn execute. These are effects that like when you see them, it's like, wow, that is something that no one else in the game has anything like that really. Why is this being added onto a new character? Like, why couldn't we just have a character with, five new abilities that don't have to do game breaking effects? I can understand where that sentiment comes from. And while I don't think it's a like valid reason for like saying other people should quit the game, I do think it's a reasonable um, thing that someone could say if they themselves no longer enjoy the game. Yeah, league changes a lot, and that's one point I'll touch on in this is I've played the game for myself for 11 years, and I've seen a lot of things that I liked and like used to really enjoy about the game. A lot of them gone away, and some of them will never come back. I loved using the old item system before with Mikhail's. Um, I think it was Mikhail's blessing, yeah, and it was the one that made it so you could remove CC and turn it into a speed boost with slow immunity. I loved building that versus Ashe because you could turn her auto attack slow into a speed boost for an ally or yourself. I loved Athene's Unholy Grail, which used to let you, on dealing damage, you would store up some charges, and then your next heal or shield would do extra healing. It let you turn champions that couldn't otherwise heal into healers, like Lux. I really enjoyed Ingenious Hunter when it was in the game. And these are all just examples of things that I really did enjoy these parts of the game, even though they got removed. Just as some things get removed, some things get added. And League is a game that ultimately is about adapting to the new circumstances of the game. Like patches come constantly, and it's like life. Like we have to deal with like the constant changes of our lives, even if we don't want them to change. Next up thing, he had solo queue experience. This is one that I have definitely at times found myself getting sucked into the narrative of, which is the feeling of like imbalance between either matchmaking on the teams or that like it can feel as if the way the autofill disparity works and whether or not you have someone who's on roll versus a main roll or smurfing and such, that can feel really demoralizing because it makes it feel like there's so many other factors that are outside your control that are negatively impacting your ability to try to be consistent. Because I think that ultimately that's what most players want is they want to feel like they are consistently having the ability to win their games based on their actions. And it's not even like players are being delusional about, oh, they expect to win every game. No, it's they just expect that if they play really well, that they have a chance. But a lot of times, there's games where you can play really well and you didn't have a chance, realistically. Because if your allies do certain things that blow out the game bad enough, you can't solo make up for it sometimes. Like, you should always try your best to do so, and I don't think you can like justifiably call a game before it's over. Like, you can't say this game was an auto loss before having tried to play it at least. Because if certain circumstances go right, games that would otherwise seem unplayable can be played. Like if your team has enough of a tempo advantage and is like strong enough. Like squishy champions that might be one-shottable by assassins, if those champions are like ahead enough in like levels and items, they can one-shot the assassins, and then the game is playable. But if you guys don't try to play it at least and see can you get a tempo advantage on those assassins, then you never know, and you just assume that you're gonna lose. But if you assume you lose, then the only thing you do is guarantee you lose. All right. I was on solo queue experience there. I know myself and a lot of people have the season, for instance, have had to go up and down like that, hundreds and hundreds of LP. I myself, during when negative LP games were at their worst, went down 800 LP. I would later climb back up, but that was a really demoralizing journey. At first, it was very crushing, and whenever I see other people in that like experience, I really do my best to try and like tell them about what I experienced, show them the video I recorded of myself talking about my feelings during that time, and I try to make them see that there's going to be hope on the other side if they can just tough it out. Because it can feel dark and lonely and you just want to quit. And I think some people do quit the game because of that period alone. And it's almost not even an emotional quitting. Like that's a very real, like prolonged reason to quit. But it touches on one other thing about League I really love. It's also the sad part about League. It's League is a guaranteed exposure to adversity. League is guaranteed to give you an unfair situation that you will not like be treated like able to like always decide the outcome of. But it's like in life, that's the same way. Like our situations we face in life are not going to be fair. We will have things where we don't get the outcome we deserve, and how you respond to it is everything. Like, are you able to deal with these moments of adversity with your head held high and I want to say without letting it like negatively impact your character? Like, do you find that you can do this like without letting it cause you to become aggressive to others or to look to blame others for your shortcomings? Because that's one thing League really offers us is a chance to blame others if we wanted to. But in the end, it doesn't help us. The only way we can really gain from League is to try and find what could we do ourselves to have an impact, to find where we can do more. Some games is hard. Like you can feel like I don't really see what I could do more there, especially in cases where someone else is like mentally trying to lose the game or self-sabotaging, or they think that the team doesn't deserve to win, or that they didn't have get what they wanted, so now they're gonna try and cause their team to lose. Those kind of conditions, it can feel like I don't see how I can like try to do more in these kind of games. In general, I think that players oftentimes fixate too much upon the end result of the game rather than just the way the game is proceeding up until the end. Like for laning phase, my team could like throw really hard in like past 15 minutes, but up until the 15 minutes in my lane 1v1, that's all me potentially, and I have control over what happened then. I can look at my events of what I did and see did I play well, and in the event I did play well, the takeaway I have to try and really bring myself to focus on, and that gets like hard for people, is you can play well and be happy with your performance even if you lost. You don't want to be happy with your performance just because you think you played well, though. You want to know you played well. Like in a measurable way, you want to see things that say, "Hey, I did these goals of mine, and I'm proud of that." All right. I'm gonna move on to his next point because there's only a few left, but still got some time to talk in this video. I'll go over some other things. He stated Vanguard is a specific reason why he was quitting, and stating that it had caused his computer to have some issues. And I know that that there are issues that have been reported with Vanguard messing up certain computers. I have not had the opportunity to see what that actually is like. My computer didn't have any issues, and I'm not saying that to say that there are no people having issues. I'm saying that it's hard actually for me because I don't get to see what it is these people are struggling with. So I don't have a good sense of what that's like. Originally, when I heard people saying they're quitting because of Vanguard, my first impression was actually back towards thinking of some players might be not capable of playing at their actual ranks they had been at due to having previously been using things that might be not permitted. Like it's to say a lot of players who are higher ranks, especially in the ADC roles, they would they're renownedly known for using certain scripting programs, like champions like Zeri, Kog'Maw, Xerath is a classic one, but these champions like the win rates of these champions fell considerably on Vanguard's release, and that was because people couldn't use these scripts on them anymore. I would always wonder, when I hear people saying they're quitting because of Vanguard, especially the high rank players, if they just quit out of nowhere, is it because they didn't have actual ability to play at their rank? I'm not going to push that as a narrative of I'm trying to say is the case with Roku or anyone else I name is quit because he was high rank, but it's just that was originally my impression that I was thinking about. Now I think about, if you have a piece of equipment that you really care about and it suddenly is risked or compromised, like such the case of Roku stated, I could see myself not wanting to keep playing. Like I put quite a lot into my laptop, and if I had to risk it to play League, I wouldn't do it. But okay. Next point he had was casual League is dead. This is an interesting one because I feel like casual League has been kind of a it's an oxymoron almost because it's something that sounds nice in theory, but League of Legends is a game that it's often requires you to play with full intention. If you don't, then the result is you're going to get punished by your opponents and you're going to have usually a really bad negative time. This is why we say autopiloting is so bad to do in League. I think that people desire something they can do to interact with this universe that doesn't require them to have such heavy intention. And I think this is where ARAMs fit in actually pretty great. But some players, they look down on ARAM games or they look down on even normals. And these players, though, they still want to interact with that universe, but they don't always want to think to the same degree. And if these players spam ranked as well, it can be very negative to their relationship with the game. I recently went back to look at some of my own personal history, and in 2019, I had played 2.3 thousand games in the course of 6 months. That's an average of 400 games a month, 920 games a week. No, not 120, 92 games a week, sorry, on average. Um, so yeah, so it's not actually 400, it's like 360 something, but it's yeah, 92 games a week or 13 games a day. Now, in that period of time, I was also playing on certain days up to 35 games in a day. I played a lot of instances of days where I'd play above 25 games, like 18 instances of above 25 games or more. I was a player who was trying to do a lot of escaping from what my life was like at the time. I had several mental health things going on that I just wasn't aware of yet. Like they had not come up in my life yet. So they had really been negatively impacting me. And I played League of Legends as kind of an escape after work. I'd get off work, go home, log in, and I'd play till I passed out. And then I'd go to work next day. For players like this, they want to keep interacting with the game, but they don't want to think. So they do not want to think if this is the scenarios that they're dealing with. One thing I think is going to help a lot with this is actually Swarm, the new mode that's coming out. It gives a nice way for players to interact, to enjoy this universe, but not need like a heavy level of intention put into the game to avoid a very negative experience. Because when you're playing the competitive aspect of League of Legends versus other players, it is super competitive, and it is really, really unpleasant when you're getting like by your opponents pretty badly. I think that this is casual league is a idea, but only that one that like exists if you aren't trying to like see why it's a bad idea. That's a bad explanation. Let me revise that. Casual League of Legends, like playing in five, to have fun. Actually, say this. Playing League of Legends with the explicit purpose of wanting to have fun as the main directive. I'm not saying you can't have fun when you play, but if you go into League and the thing you want above all else is fun, you want to play either probably in five-man groups where you know you're going to be with people who are going to be friendly and that you'll enjoy playing with, or you want to play things that are not going to have the hyper competitive nature of like ranked or sometimes even just like norms if you're in high enough MMR. I think something interesting is I had talked to a friend of mine and he said that like he finds League of Legends to not be very toxic at all really. And even though he has chat on, he plays in only like five mans. And even though he has chat on, he doesn't have these negative interactions. And what it was is I realized the most negative people you're going to encounter in League are almost always your allies. It's not your enemies who are really toxic usually. It's your allies. And interestingly, you can't mute just ally chat and keep enemy on. But that's why when you play in a five-man group, you have that repeat interaction with these players in your team, and you feel more wanting to be nice to them, to see them as people, rather than seeing them as just NPCs almost. That's actually the basic idea of game theory was the repeated interactions causing people to behave better together. All right, moving on. He had one last topic I'm going to add in here, which is he felt that Riot changes things for no reason. And I I do know where he like is basing this from, but I think he is very wrong in this statement. League of Legends requires change. Like a good example is right now we're having a meta of where Warmog's armor is very, very powerful and being used by a wide range of supports. Some can go at first item, some go at second, but it's giving supports a ton of like power in games because the 1000 HP makes them even squishy champions normally unable to be one shot like or bursted, and if they can survive, they heal back to full. The 15% movement speed out of combat is massive on them too. I think to change this, they're probably gonna have to raise the trigger HP for Warmogs by at least like a couple hundred, so that you have to build like one or two HP items in addition to Warmogs. That way, it's not a rush, and that way supports have a harder time building it because their support HP items like only give like 200 HP, whereas like other classes can get like 400 or 500 in their HP items. This should get it out of support, but I don't know if they're going to do that. But this is the kind of thing that they need to do a change because right now it's negatively impacting player experiences to have this item so warping a class. Like I was looking at how champions like Sona, Senna, Zillion, Soraka, it's upwards of 55, 58% win rates on them to go Warmog's armor. And that just seems off to have them do. So the argument that Riot changes things for no reason, like either changing the jungle, adding new items, or removing runes, or adding new ones, like it's not that these things are not necessary. It's that they might feel unnecessary if you're a player who is playing the game in a particular style, and your style is like comfortable to you. Roku's when made this argument is that someone who's playing, a champion who's got a very like clear and understood game plan. Like Darius has, his primary play pattern. He uses his Ghost Ignite, I mean Ghost TP, Ghost Flash, and he'll try and run you down the long lanes and then, snowball on you like that. That's a really clear and easy to like recognize pattern. A similar instance is I'm in Camille myself. I remember when Divine Sunder was in the game, it was a very clear reference point of if I get this item, I can reliably kill most, even the durable targets over a long period of time just using the percentage damage, and I could heal off it too. These clear reference points can feel really nice and like they're core to your champion's understanding or identity. And when they're gone, your champion doesn't feel the same anymore. And that feels bad sometimes. It can also feel like when certain champions have things added to them, like or changed to have like a rework to this different version of themselves, it feels like why do they do that? But if I had to summarize myself why I think that it's okay if players don't like that and they want to quit because of it, I don't think it's reasonable to say that those things are wrong or that other people should be wanting to quit over it too. Preferences of what we are like what we enjoy in our in league, we none of us are exactly the same as each other in this regard. We have things that we find frustrating, we have things we find enjoyable, we have things we like to face and things we don't like to face. But I think that it's not right of us to ever suggest that our reasons we think the game is bad should be the reasons other people have. It's okay to share your thoughts and say, this is what I dislike. And other people can look at that and go, I dislike that too. But saying why you should quit League of Legends and providing your reasons, I don't think that's a good thing to do. I think that's just spreads unnecessary negativity and it can echo the worst parts of like sentiment in the community. Because yeah, some people are going to have negative beliefs like that and those people are usually will talk the loudest actually. And if everyone just starts saying a bunch of negative things like that because they're talking loudly, it's the vocal minority. But it just skews what players think of the game, and what they think the game is like then determines what they shape their own beliefs about the game to be like. People think, oh, this game is dying, or this, everyone's toxic because they see a small percentage of players who are toxic, but they don't see all the players who are not because those players either are not talking very loud or because they feel like they don't want to speak up in the face of these people who are toxic. Okay, so I've covered the points by Roku. I wanted to look at like the list of all the players I've recently have noticed. Like I went down and took a list of them. These are the players I've seen quit over the years. Just of recent memory off the top of my head. Recently we had Hashinshin. We have Rav. Roku was recent here. Yamato's death was recent. Scooch was about a year ago. Donghwap I think was about a year ago. Red Mercy I believe was about a year ago as well. Saber quit and came back. Um, Jibe quit several years ago. Pinoy, um, Dunkey quit a long time ago. That's a famous one. Obviously, Magikarp used Fly. Kiori. I think Darkmane still makes stuff. Yeah, Darkmane's still going, I think. But I think some of these creators have quit better than others. Like, I think Roku actually did a pretty decent like video when first quitting. It's mostly he said, "This is not for views. It is for me actually." Like it's his own like piece of therapy almost because he's trying to make it so that he has his closure on the game, like why he's choosing to leave. And I think that's fine. I don't think his video is bad at all. Some of my complaints I've listed about saying that other people should quit, these aren't directed at him. They're directed to what I saw looking up the other creators who've quit the game. People who were actually telling other people why they should quit too. Um, I'm actually going to address a few of the other things that Roku listed though. These were some of the issues that some of them I wasn't really a fan of. He had some about like whenever players can complain about damage specifically, I feel like it's a very interesting one because yes, damage is very high, but that's where the intentionality of the game comes in and your ability to like focus. If you're staying aware of things and properly like preparing yourself, a fast-paced game is not a bad thing. Like some games like Valorant, you can get killed in just a moment's notice. Like that's common in shooter games. MOBAs, it's less like welcome when this is the case because you don't always have like perfect knowledge of like what's going on, or like it's just very hard to track everything. Like there's a lot goes on in a MOBA, but your ability to react to things is important, of course, and you don't want to feel like it's like, oh, I'm just not, my hands are not fast enough. It's or my reaction time's not good enough. So that's why having things like a window to react and counterplay is important. But the league community overall, one thing I know is I've seen a lot myself and also seen like reported by data and a lot is players don't build defensively enough. Players will choose the most offensive option they have available to them usually, and they will not second guess whether or not they should go a slightly more defensive option. And as a result, the community always leans towards playing more damage in their setups. And that's because kind of there's a saying that more damage solves all problems, and it's not wrong. If you can deal more damage to your opponent and kill them before they kill you, your problem is solved. But this implies that you're going to be able to always be able to deal more than them, and that you will not have any issues with incoming damage. All right, moving on. Um, this video is almost going to be over. We're approaching the end of this recording, but he comments a few last things on certainly T. He was making a commentary about how like he thought he's a designer who marked the end of like the start of when champions became very overloaded. I felt that this was a it's kind of a scapegoat because it's someone who's so far like out of the community now that it's just you can use the name and it doesn't have to like actually be accurate at all, even slightly. While yes, certainly T made a lot of champions that were um, known to have like effects that were not seen before in their kits. To state that he is like the start of this era and like the reason that we have champions like that today, it's it's a nice thing to like target like your attention towards, but the game is what it is, and like Riot has taken the direction that players have pushed that they want in a way. Like we as players may sometimes say we don't like things, but we then will show that we do with how we interact with those things. Like players say they don't like damage, yet they build full damage. Players say that they like what's the one I want to say for this one? It's like trying to find a good example rather than just one off the top of my head. Oh yeah, it's like champions they don't like or find annoying, but it's like yet the pick rates for these champions will also be very high. It's like they don't just ban the champion only, they also play these champions too. And oh yeah, skill differences in players is one of the final points he touched on. He talks about how when you have certain players that are better than like their counterparts on the enemy team, if that role that their player is in, like jungle, supports, or ADC as well too, if the player like that is better is significantly better, then the game can feel almost like there was no point in playing it for the team that is losing. Because when your ADC is unable to deal the like amount of offensive output as the enemy ADC by a large margin, you can struggle and struggle and struggle and then have fights just never seem to pan out. And it's a almost invisible kind of frustration when this happens. I think that this is like a big reason why I would be a fan of longer match timings, like fine matches. But I know that that's an issue. The high low, it doesn't really work as a solution. But I just feel like you can't have games that are so one-sided, like like the outcome prediction. All right, this has been my talk about just players and their recent trend of quitting league is coming up a lot lately. I think that players either quit emotionally or they quit for reasons they consider to be, valid last straws for them. And I just want to say that don't push others into having to share your view, but people are allowed to share what their own feelings are. All right, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.